The takedown of Harper Slate. The night clung to the city like smoke, dense and suffocating, coiling through alleyways and creeping beneath flickering streetlights. Officer Harper Slate leaned against the wheel of his cruiser, fingers drumming a slow, irritated rhythm along the steering column. The dashboard clock glowed like an accusation. 2:57 a.m. 3 more hours of silence, of boredom, of patrol routes through neighborhoods he resented. This part of Town Hall Stead district wasn't one Slate patrolled with pride. No, he loathed it. To him, it was a failure, a cesspool wrapped in urban decay. The buildings leaned in exhaustion, window panes spiderwebbed with cracks, store signs faded to illegibility, rusted metal fences crooked like broken teeth. It was in Slate's mind, a graveyard of people who had stopped trying. He sipped cold gas station coffee, its bitterness settling on his tongue like resentment. He didn't patrol these streets for duty anymore. He did it for control. For those fleeting moments when he could remind people that he still held the power to interrupt their lives. Not for justice, for domination. And tonight, the streets were too still. Then, through the blurred corner of his windshield, he saw her. An old woman stood beneath a flickering streetlight across from a shuttered laundromat. She was small, her back slightly bent, wrapped in a thick, oversized coat that dwarfed her frame. A wide-brimmed hat shadowed her face. In one hand, she held a cane. In the other, a plastic grocery bag sagging with what looked like bread and canned goods. Slate narrowed his eyes. Too late. Too quiet. Too suspicious. He flicked the engine off and sat in silence, watching her. She didn't move, didn't pace, didn't glance over her shoulder like someone who knew she was doing wrong. That bothered him. She was too composed. He stepped out, slamming the cruiser door harder than necessary, the sound cutting through the air like a blade. His boots struck the concrete with sharp purpose. Across the street, the woman didn't react. Slate frowned. She should have. He crossed the street, hand resting on the butt of his flashlight. The anticipation built like static in his chest, his favorite kind of moment. Confrontation without warning. "You out here for a reason, ma'am?" he barked. The woman slowly turned her head, the brim of her hat tilting just enough to reveal calm, steady eyes beneath it. "Just going home, officer," she said gently. Slate stepped closer. "At 3 a.m.? "Yes," she replied, as if that was answer enough. He scanned her face. Lined, weathered, but not afraid. "I need to see some ID," he said, stepping into her space. She sighed, not with resistance, but with the weariness of someone too old to be surprised. Her hand disappeared into her coat and re-emerged with a worn leather wallet. He snatched it and read the name, Diane Merrick. Local address. Nothing flagged. He looked up, unsatisfied. "What's in the bag?" he asked. She raised it gently. "Groceries." He clicked his tongue. "Mind if I check that?" "I do, officer." He smirked. That wasn't a question. He grabbed her wrist. She flinched but didn't pull away. Her bag slipped, groceries spilling onto the pavement. A can rolled into the gutter with a metallic clink. She stood firm. "Let go of me," she said evenly. Slate tightened his grip. "People like you think the rules don't apply, don't you?" She said nothing, just stared at him. Calm, grounded, dignified in a way that made his badge feel small. And then he snapped. He yanked her forward, fist flying. The blow cracked against her jaw. Her hat fell off. Blood dribbled from the corner of her mouth. She fell to one knee, but she didn't cry out. Instead, she rose. Slowly, painfully, but she rose. "You're going to regret that," she said, voice low. He blinked. Then she reached in her coat again. His hand went to his holster. But she didn't pull a weapon. She pulled a badge. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Special Agent Diane Merrick. Undercover. Everything stopped. Slate's breath hitched in his throat. His hand fell from his weapon. His knees wobbled. "You assaulted a federal agent," she said. "Backup's on the way." Slate stumbled backward, horror overtaking rage. He couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The street light above flickered, illuminating the blood on her lip and the badge in her hand. And then the sirens came. A convoy of black SUVs screeched around the corner, followed by local cruisers. Doors flung open. Agents poured out, and every one of them stared straight at Slate. "Drop your weapon," barked a tall agent approaching from the front. His badge flashed as he stepped into the light. "Now!" Slate dropped everything: flashlight, keys, dignity. He was cuffed on the spot. Cold steel snapped around his wrists like judgment itself. Diane Merrick watched silently. Her presence alone spoke louder than any outcry. Slate was led to a cruiser, cameras already rolling. Phones out. Live streams. The man who once ruled these streets now hunched in the back of a squad car, sweat soaking his collar. But that wasn't the end. That was the beginning. Lieutenant Marshal Greer sat behind his desk at Central Precinct, face grim as he watched the footage replay on loop. Harper Slate's enforcer, his firewall, had been arrested by the feds for punching an undercover agent. And that agent, Diane Merrick, wasn't just anyone. She was the one person Greer feared, the kind who didn't scare, didn't waver, didn't take deals. His phone buzzed. A message from his contact at City Hall. "She's digging deep." He cursed under his breath. This wasn't salvageable. Slate had to be shut down completely. A whisper to the right ears. A call to men who knew what to do. Inside holding cell C3, Harper Slate sat trembling on a bench, still in his stained uniform. Two men entered, faces blank, IDs missing. "We're moving you," one said. "Why? Where's my lawyer?" Slate asked, panic creeping in. No answer. They grabbed him. Hard. He screamed. It didn't matter. Moments later, Harper Slate lay motionless on the cell floor, eyes open in shock, a thin line of blood tracing his temple. Official report: cardiac arrest. Reality: silence forever. When Diane Merrick received the call, her world tilted. He's dead. They'd killed him. Before he could talk. Before he could flip. The war had escalated. And she was going to finish it. Files were pulled. Phone records. Surveillance. A burner phone tied to Greer. Cash deposits traced back to sealed misconduct cases. The blueprint of corruption was forming. Greer wasn't a lieutenant. He was a kingpin. And Slate had been his sword. Not anymore. A federal team was assembled. Raids organized. Warrants signed. And one rainy morning, Diane Merrick led her agents straight through Central Precinct's front doors. Uniforms parted. Silence fell. Marshal Greer stood in his office, blinds drawn. He knew they were coming. He'd prepared a burner passport. Hidden assets. But when he opened the door, Diane was already there. "You're under arrest," she said. "Conspiracy. Obstruction. Accessory to murder." The cuffs felt colder than he expected. Outside, the people gathered. Chants. Signs. Cameras. And a city began to change. One arrest at a time. One truth at a time. Because of one woman who refused to be afraid. And refused to be silent.